Today is Wednesday, January 21st, and this is the regular monthly meeting of the Pikes Peak Commission on Aging. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum, and I will hand it off to you for introductions and to begin the meeting.
Great. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to go around the room. Let's start online first this time and have some introductions to those who are joining us online. I see Dayton.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Dayton Romero. I am commissioner for 2 years. Thanks.
And Don, would you like to introduce yourself? I guess never mind, Don, you're not able to unmute because you're not in the cool group. We'll start with Wanda in the room.
Wanda Wood, appointee, El Paso County.
Maryland Dawson, new here.
Kathy at large. Kim Nguyen, Silver Scaffold.
Foster, Teller County.
Carolyn Caston, El Paso County.
Phil Stafford, Colorado Springs.
Kent Matthews, Colorado Springs.
And Erin joined us online. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Erin Eleuterio, Monument.
Thank you. And I'm Paula Levy, and I'm Colorado Springs, I believe.
Jody Barker, Director of the Area Agency on Aging. We also have
And yep.
Melissa Marks, our staff member tonight.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Our first item on the agenda is election of the 2026 officers.
And I'll go ahead and jump in at this point. We don't have a membership person right now, so they would be kind of putting this forward if they were here, but that was Erin Marizella, and she resigned off the commission a little while ago. And so for our 2026 officers, who we are presenting is Paula Levy as chair, Kathy Cirillo-Smith as vice chair, and Steve Schleicher as the membership chair. And so with that nomination, do I have a second?
Second.
And any comments or discussion at this point? Okay, so if not, I would call for a vote for those three officers for 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion has carried. And so Chair Levy, you can continue to lead the meeting. Thank you very much. Welcome to 2026. Thank you so much.
you. Next item is approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Just a housekeeping item, if you would, for sake of the recording and for the minutes, if you wouldn't mind, please announce yourself when you make that vote. That's big help for us and for Melissa, who has to track all of this. Our first was Carolyn, second was Phil. Thank you.
All right, all in favor of the approval of the agenda, say aye or. All right, and I just see that Penny has joined us from Park County, I believe. Is that Penny from Park County?
No, it is Penny from Colorado Springs.
All right, well, great. Penny Whitney, thanks for joining us. Okay, next item are consent items. And the first one being the approval of our December 17th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Foster, I move to accept the minutes from December 17th as given.
Do we have a second?
Penny Whitney, I second.
Great. And all those in favor of the minutes being approved, please say aye.
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 That motion carries unanimously. Next is public comment.
Madam Chair, we have not, we don't have any guests in the room, and we've not received anything in advance, so requesting public comment. And if anyone online, looks like we're all members online except Don. I will acknowledge Don. Don Kovaleski is one of our RAC members, Regional Advisory Council members, and so Don, just want to thank you for being online today and watching the meeting. But with that, I don't think we have any public comments, Madam Chair.
I did notice when we all signed in that there was a handout about public comment on the table over there. And so it is good for everyone to know what that entails, because if you know someone who is sharing with you issues about seniors in our community and counties, you encourage them to come to this meeting to share their public comment or to get online and share online. We had Joanna Fix that came to our meeting probably a year or so ago, living with Alzheimer's, and talked about concerns she had in her neighborhood about people speeding. And it's, you know, it's not just for child at play, it's people living with dementia walking, and it could, she brought that to our attention. So that's a good handout to know, and please encourage people to come and share their comments and concerns with the, that's why we're here. Okay, next is item 6, action items, at-large membership appointments.
And again, I will talk about this a little bit because in the future, our membership chair, who is going to be Steve Schleicher going forward, would be presenting our two folks today. We have had opportunities to meet both Kim and Marilyn in times past. They've come to our Commission on Aging meetings and have put in their applications and are officially being presented today as new members. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or other comments. Again, Kim presented on the AS aging opportunities and things that have happened. Marilyn's presented on Hey Neighbor, already engaged in multiple things in the community. If any members have questions or comments, I'll pause there for a second. Otherwise, I'll make the motion to approve these two new appointments.
Carol Caston, I'll second. Say, be invited to join the caregiver work group. Just put that little plug in.
And all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Welcome to the cool team. Yay. Yeah, we're glad to have you. This is just, like I said, so exciting to watch it fill the seats. So, all right, next is presentations. We have one. Here he comes. Thank you, Jared.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's probably not the world's funnest or craziest, or pick your name for what kind of presentation this is, but it is something that we like to do every now and then, just to make sure that all of our members of our various committees are aware of the different rules that might apply to them, as it in this particular instance applies to Colorado open meetings and open records laws. And so I'll give a little bit of background. This is a fairly high level presentation, but there is the Colorado Open Records Act, declared to be the public policy that state that all public records shall be open to inspection for any person at reasonable times. Essentially, that is me in terms of what, if someone wants to open records request, they will come looking for me. In terms of high level of what is subject to an open records request, that includes documents both electronic and handwritten, photos and videos, emails, Teams and text messages, work-related materials on private devices or accounts. What that means in terms of our various committees is that anything that you do in relation to this committee would fall under open records guidelines. How we implement that, just because with the exception of myself, Jody, and Melissa, none of you are PPACG employees. However, if you interact with a PPACG employee, we can pull an email from that. If it is something in relation to a decision that you've made and it falls under with the Colorado Open Records Act, that is something that we would be talking to individually one-on-one. Knock on wood, I've been here for a few years now. I've never had to go to that level, but it is something we always like to make sure people are aware of. That it is something that could happen. It is something that we as staff have had that happen to us, and it could always happen to our committee members. Now, what it doesn't generally include, and this is probably more for us as staff, but that's going to include any personal information. For example, HIPAA, your agency is going to be more or trade secrets. This committee does not those kinds of things, so you don't have to worry about that. And work products, and that staff is creating something for you, and it's deliberative. And Jody and I are kind of discussing what we should do. That would be considered a work product and would not be subject to the Open Records Act. I kind of give that overview just to make sure people know and aware of what is and isn't. If in doubt, talk to me. Most people should be going to me since I am the designated open records custodian, but it is something that sometimes people may go strictly to you. And I want you guys to be aware of. If that happens, point in my direction. The biggest thing that is going to really impact the Commission on Aging is what's called the Colorado Sunshine Law, or you might hear referred to as the Colorado Open Meetings Law. And I'll just read from the statute, quote, "Is it declared to be a matter of statewide concern, the policy of the state, that the formation of public policy is public business and may not be conducted in secret." And then it goes on to define what a meeting is, and quote, "Any kind of gathering convened to discuss public business in person, by telephone, electronically, or by any other means of communication." Basically, if you decide that you're going to get onto, I don't know if Telegram is still a thing, but if you guys are on a group Telegram, I guess that's an app for that now, but that would be considered open meetings. What is considered a meeting is when 3 or more members or a quorum, whichever is smaller, where commission business is taking place. For us, that is 3 or more. So a quorum for this group is 4. So this commission can't take any business unless it has 4. With our 2 new members, that number will move up to 5. So even if there's not a quorum, if there's 3 or more members in one spot, you're going to be talking about, to be broad a little bit, any kind of senior services thing, it's going to all fall as an open meeting. And so, for example, that's why we notice all of our work group meetings. We will also notice, for example, when the senior center opened last fall, we noticed that because we had 3 or more commission members who are participating in that. And we have to provide that notice to the public 24 hours in advance. What that notice looks like is physical posting on our 2 bulletin boards, the one where most people come in on Chestnut Street, as well as our other entrance on 7th Street, as well as our website at ppacg.org. And that notice also has to provide topics that could be or may be discussed. It doesn't have to be discussed, but it could be. And so, for example, if you're able to see us either in any of our other meetings or this meeting, pretty much once we get to about 3 o'clock yesterday, the agenda is locked. Nothing can be added to it. We did add an agenda item yesterday morning regarding the Pinnacle Assurance sale in response to some members who were kind of looking for a deeper discussion on that. But once we get to 3 o'clock, nothing's getting added. 3 o'clock on Tuesday. The board can, or the commission can always opt to take something off the agenda, and that's when you see at the very beginning the agenda approval stage. That's where you're essentially setting like, hey, maybe agenda item, I'm going to pick a number 20A, is just not ready for discussion. We put it on there just to cover our bases and make sure that if it was ready for discussion, we could discuss it. But hey, it's not ready for discussion. We're going to pull 20A off the agenda. And that's where that agenda approval stage really comes in play. And so as you're going through, just keep in mind that those are some things, like I said, it may be discussed. It doesn't have to be discussed. The idea being that it gives the member of the public the ability to say, okay, I see what the agenda is. There's an agenda item I may be interested in commenting on or learning more about. I'm going to go. If it's not discussed, that's okay. But we have to provide the public the opportunity to see, hey, this is something that they could be talking about. Yes. Yes, you can.
Okay, one is around emails. So if you're like the caregiver work group office uses an example, if somebody wants to share a resource they've seen or a caregiver toolkit and we want to distribute it by email, should we not do that and wait? Because sometimes we like people to be able to read things before the meeting.
You can, it's when you get to the discussion level. So you can provide materials in advance. Hey, we're going to discuss this. But as soon as you start getting into the level of, hey, this is a great idea, but can we change X, Y, Z? That's where that needs to take place in the meeting. So you can send something out in advance, and that's what we do. We send out our meeting materials, and we send out, memos or supporting documents so you have an idea and can be prepared. But no discussion can take place until the actual meeting.
And the caregiver work group, for example, is just getting started, so we haven't done a lot in the way of structured agendas. Should we be? And if so, when would you need that by?
So I'll take it as soon as you have it ready. For a lot of the work groups, because a lot of them are kind of in that same kind of just building out setting. Let me see if I can pull up. So we've got the social engagement one notice for tomorrow. I think I put on there, we'll meet to discuss topics related to social engagement among seniors, including barriers, needs, and benefits of social engagement. So pretty broad. Hopefully that captures pretty much everything we can think of when it comes to the social engagement work group. But if you're talking about something really specific, so for example, yesterday, the housing and workforce group had two specific things from the Philharmonic and regarding Teller County. And so we did notice those two specific topics. The more detailed we can get, so like that's why like our notice for these meetings is just the agenda. But you don't need to get that detailed or technical. So like for our executive committee meetings, it's just the same planning the next meeting. That's essentially what they do. They look at different agendas, they discuss what they're going to discuss at this particular meeting. But the notice for the executive committee is just a general meeting to plan out the agenda for the January 21st Commission on Aging meeting. Detail is always nice, just because it helps provide everyone else that insight. I will say the issue, and it's not really going to come up to the work groups, but for a bigger group meeting, we're going to have, or like for a main commission or board meeting, if it's too broad and the public has really no idea what is going to be discussed, that's when it gets to the other side, because it's like, well, I'll try to come up with something. Let's say it's and we don't do zoning, so I'm not think zoning. Say it's just a zoning update. Well, what kind of zoning update? Are they talking about zoning code updates? Are they talking about a zoning decision for a particular parcel? It needs to be a little more specific than just zoning update. So it needs to provide at least some idea of what can be expected. Give yourself some wiggle room so you're not constrained to that, but at the same time, be specific enough that the public can at least reasonably infer what's going to be discussed.
What's the closest to a meeting you would be comfortable having it?
24 hours. Yep. Ideally 25, because that gives me an hour to actually post it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have to notice it 24 hours, so well before 24 hours to give him time to get it ready and actually out on the board.
Yeah, I won't complain if it's done earlier. We typically try for like these kinds of meetings, the main meetings, to have it out about a week in advance. Usually kind of flows to about that 5 or 6 day, but we do shoot for a week in advance. I think all of you are also on our board of directors emails. Those are Those do go out a week in advance, barring a massive last minute change. You're welcome. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to go into a few kind of examples. I stole these from the Colorado Attorney General's office, so hopefully these are still accurate. But it essentially, is this a public meeting? So if it's a rulemaking session and work session, and I'm kind of combining those two because usually a rulemaking session, you are actually deciding something, but a work session, you're not, the agenda is not to decide anything, you might just be discussing something. Yes, the reason is you still have that 3 or more threshold. Side conversations during meeting breaks. So not really an issue here because we don't have, 6+ hour meetings, but if we had a long meeting and there was a lunch break in between, and you had 3 or more people sitting at a table, technically, yes. Super hard to enforce it. What I would recommend in that situation is just talk about what your kids are up to or what you're going to do this weekend. As long as it is Commission on Aging related, go for it. But if you're gonna have yourself and 2 other people stand at the water cooler and you're gonna be talking and planning and trying to say, how are you voting on this? That needs to take place in public. Meals and social events, kind of same thing, but if it's a meal and social event and you're not discussing commission business, no. But if commission business is going to be discussed, then yes. Sometimes my favorite ones, and I mentioned this, we had the opening of the senior center last fall, and you're being invited as commission members, then yes. And so, for example, there might be an event where 3 commission members happen to all attend at the same time. Obviously, you all have a lot of shared interests and overlapping interests. And so there might be a situation where someone is doing a ribbon cutting or having a meeting or something, and 3 or more members are there. That's fine. Don't talk about commission stuff, especially if you're all sitting at the same table. And we won't be able to notice that anyway. And that's why I kind of say, like, if you're being invited as commission members, because we'll post it. Because usually if someone's inviting you as commission members, they're talking to us, they're talking to Jody or Melissa. It's like, hey, it'd be great if the Pikes Peak Commission on Aging could attend this event. So we send it out. At that point, we know that 3 or more members may be in attendance, so we'll post it. Like I said, that gets into some gray area. If you are in a social event and you have, you're all at the same table, again, you're chatting about the weather, you're chatting about your summer travel plans, and someone comes up and they recognize that there's 3 Commission on Aging members and they want to come up and ask you a question about the commission, politely decline, point them to this meeting, and that's the best place to do that. Or if 2 of you want to spin off and talk to them, that's perfectly acceptable too. It's just when you get to 3 or more talking commission business, that's when we're gonna start to get into that gray area. Is it a public meeting if you're just discussing dates and times? No, there is an exception for this in the Colorado Open Meetings Law rule. As long as you're just talking to each other on when to meet, you're not discussing the content. You're not discussing like, hey, we're going to talk about this, we're all going to vote a certain way. But if you're just trying to figure out calendars and figure out what date works best, that's perfectly fine to discuss amongst yourselves. And then once you decide it, let me know, we'll post it, and you can have your meeting. Okay, this one is a tricky one, but a couple school districts have gotten dinged for this in the past couple of years. And so it's something I want to mention because it was a loophole, I should say, until the court decided it wasn't. So is it a public meeting if I meet with someone and then they relay that information to another meeting? So if I'm talking to Jody, Jody then talks to Melissa, Melissa talks to me. Never more than 2 people at once. But we all know what each other person's saying. No, you cannot do that. That is considered a serial meeting, not the breakfast food, but like the podcast, where it is interpreted, and this is where the courts got these school districts. We are intentionally trying to get around that 3-person or quorum requirement. And so if it can be proven either by phone records, email records, that kind of stuff, that I talked to Jody, Jody talked to Melissa, Melissa talked to me, we all know what's going on and who said what. As long as they can prove that that was the intent, they're going to get you as a public meeting. So now that I've scared everyone, hopefully, it's something we want to make sure you're aware of. especially as we have these work groups that are really starting to meet and really kind of starting to get some feet underneath them. We want to make sure that you're all aware of what can be considered an open meeting and what can and can't do as a part of that discussion. Any questions?
Well, three of us are on a board together. What does that mean?
So if you're three of you on a member of a board, you're probably meeting as that board.
Mhm.
So whenever you're meeting or you're discussing that particular board situation, you should be fine. But if you're going to start talking about like, hey, we had this membership vote today, what do you think? Well, I think these people are really great. But as soon as you kind of cross into that, that's when you get into the open meetings when it's about this one. But if you, like I said, you guys have a lot of shared interests. You guys are going to be in a lot of the same places at different times. As long as you're going there as that board member, you're fine. You're discussing that particular board or organization's business.
So maybe some of us should have name tags that say, I am not being a commissioner at this time. I'll make them.
If you choose to.
Okay.
I won't
I
mandate
will make
that.
them. I can make them. I have a maker.
I was about to say, I mean, I'd love to just see that.
Okay.
Because I would love to kind of have that, I am not
Well,
the,
some of us have a number of name tags we wear, so
Yeah.
I could yeah, that's true. Well, be
just gonna dry
careful.
erase one.
Be ready for next meeting. Everyone might have presents.
Yeah.
Might. Okay, that was my question. Any other questions for Jared? Online, any questions? Jared, thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you all very much.
And Madam Chair, as Jared is stepping away, I just want to recognize that Dr. Deidre Duncan, City Council member for Fountain, is in attendance online.
Thank you. Next item is information items, number 8, and the first item is membership committee.
And again, I'll step in again. Steve isn't here, and he did email and say that he was not going to be able to make it today. He's in a meeting up in Denver, so he did let us know that. So again, welcome our 2 new members to join, and stay tuned for orientations. And Steve and myself will be co-hosting that. If Paula and Kathy are able to make it, they'll come too, but usually it's the membership person and myself that do those orientations and kind of share some information and talk with you guys about a lot of things. So stay tuned for that. Kind of one of the most important things, and I think you guys have heard this from other meetings that you've been at and you're already participating, but thinking about joining one of the work groups, one of the committees that we have. And I did send out an email, and I've heard back from quite a few people already. I sent out a note asking both the Regional Advisory Council members and the Commission on Aging members to send me alone, just kind of an update on your interests and things that you're working on. We don't always have a chance for people to get to know each other better. And as Jared mentioned, there's a lot of overlapping interests and things that people are doing. And so just really wanted a chance to kind of put that into a document to be able to send it out to folks so that people can better understand what interests and things that people are focusing on across both of the groups. I am fortunate to be able to see Jody too, a lot of really interesting, good connections between the 2 groups. And again, Dawn is joining the meeting today from the Regional Advisory Council. In past times, we've had Laura Cronick from the RAC sit on the meeting, listening in to the Commission on Aging. And so please, if you have not sent me your kind of 2026, interests for the year, please, send those my way. I just asked for like 2 or 3. I will say there's someone in the room who gave me more. I won't mention the name. Anyway, it was Kent. I can't help it. So please, I didn't want to burden anybody with it. I just wanted something short and sweet. So to share with people. So it's great. And I think that we don't have any other membership kind of folks in our sites right now. So yes, maybe stay tuned for now. Trying to think if I'm missing something, but I don't think I am. Okay,
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Next is item B, jurisdiction reports. Okay.
and I'll probably continue with that too. Just a reminder for folks that we really want to make the jurisdictions be a purposeful appointee process and appointment process for the people who have been appointed by their counties or cities. And our goal is to have 2 presentations this year. The first one would be in May, which means there's going to be planning that kind of happens with that. And then the next one would be in October. So people who've been appointed, please be prepared for some extra meetings and engagements and things. So thank you for that. And we did discuss at last month's meeting to present Phil to the city of Colorado Springs as an appointee. And again, that process might very well go out. The city might end up posting that and getting additional applicants. So we'll just be stay tuned on that. But I will be putting that forward and getting you in touch, Phil, with the folks at the city, and we'll see what the next steps are there. Any comments or questions?
Thank you, Melissa. Next is item C, policy committees. First one being the Colorado Center for Aging. There goes Melissa's. I'm the person who really attends that a lot of the times. And, you know, you guys did get an email invite to sit in on, was it last week, Jody? That we had the state meeting with the Colorado Center on Aging and C4A and Colorado Commission on Aging. So I'll turn it over to Jody just to make a few comments about that meeting, and then also Penny Whitney might have a few. I don't know if she was at that meeting, and I don't know if anyone else from here. Carolyn, were you on that? I don't know if anybody else got on that, but I'll let Jody jump in.
I did see on Thursday morning that Penny Whitney did join for a while. And so Penny, thank you for being on there, and Melissa as well. Jared and I were there in person on Thursday morning. And again, and I'll cover this part in mine, there was another function on Friday morning around legislative issues. CCA has begun, even though Thursday was only the second day of the legislative season. They had already started putting together their hot list of things to watch for. Don't really have anything specific for you, but there is a concern around, and I know that we have this also as an agenda item, but around the Pinnacle Assurance sale. The idea being to offset a portion of the the budget issues, but the biggest issue there is that it's a one-time issue, a one-time fund influx, as it were, but ultimately not really serving longer term issues around state issues. From an aging perspective, our funding at the State Fund for Senior Services, that falls under the Older Coloradans Act, is very small compared to a lot of the other budgets. And so for the most part, we're just trying to stay under the radar to make sure that that isn't flagged as potential funding to be drawn from. And so the Colorado Center for Aging folks, Rich Morrow and Jeanette Hensley, long time, I believe they were founders or a big part of the conversion from the formerly known as Senior Lobby Group. But they were there to share some of the highlights and the work that's going to be going on. For those of you who may not be aware, you do not have to be a member of the Colorado Center for Aging to listen in to their conversations and the meetings, and those are held Mondays during the legislative season. They go to a broader schedule during the off legislative time. But you can go to the Colorado Center for Aging website and sign up for their updates, and then you can call in and listen. You just don't have the opportunity to vote as a non-member. So it is a good way to stay connected. They do take a bit of a broader stroke on aging issues than either us or Commission on Colorado Commission on Aging, or even the Colorado Association of AAA's do, simply because they are looking at across all of legislative issues and the bills that are introduced with anything that could have aging in mind. And so even if it has a slight touch, sometimes they will track it, they will watch it, and they will discuss it. So it's a good group to if you have the opportunity to listen into.
You know, if they have anyone representing Colorado Springs, El Paso County on their board?
That I don't know. They just had a recent board update, so I don't know what that looks like right now.
I sat on that board for a short time, and I know they would love representation from this area, so I believe if you were interested in just attending a meeting, seeing what they're about, and then possibly applying to be on their board, it would be great to have representation from El Paso County, Colorado Springs, Teller County. It'd be great to have representation. I just couldn't handle it.
It typically falls right at the same time as Jared and I are in on Monday mornings in our PPACG legislative subcommittee of the board, and so we're not able to listen in. Aaron Marizella was previously on the board. It's a good example. So there could be opportunity there.
Thank you. All right, next up is Jared. Pikes Peak Area Council of Government Legislative Committee report.
All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm back. You give me 3 times today, so we're halfway through all my stuff. I'm going to start on the federal side part because that's going to be a lot quicker than the state side. Federal, the next appropriations deadline is next Friday, and looks like at least, if not all 12 bills, 11 of the 12 appropriation bills will probably make it across the finish line. The nice thing is that of those 11, that would include the labor, HHS, and education bill, which is the one that we would be most concerned about. It's looking like it's going to be part of a minibus package, along with probably transportation, housing, urban development, and I believe financial services. That would leave one outstanding bill, appropriations bill, which looks like it might get stuck. Just reading the tea leaves a little bit. I think it's still ultimately going to go through. So I think we could have all 12 appropriation bills hopefully across the finish line by next Friday, which would be fantastic, which means we don't have to worry about any more government shutdown until September 30th, and we can get back into a more consistent, more regular appropriation cycle in Congress. No big changes. Obviously, the executive branch's proposals about 9 or 10 months ago weren't too bad for the HHS side, especially for us, and looks like that's going to continue through. So shouldn't be anything I would say groundbreaking or earth-shattering from the federal appropriation side. Any questions on the federal side before I dive into state?
I'll just add that the Older Americans Act is still up for reauthorization, and our Colorado Senator Bennett has added his name as one of the co-sponsors for supporting that reauthorization. Under the current continuing resolution, there's still flow of funding, but without the reauthorization, it makes it very difficult to talk about expansion of services, expansion of funding, and that kind of thing. But over the last year or so, we've gotten comfortable with just saying, don't take any, just leave us flat, and we'll figure it out. But reality is that our area and really across the nation, we need more funding to provide appropriate services for our older adults to stay in community. So we're still watching for that to get passed so that those conversations can begin in earnest.
Alrighty, I will go ahead and dive into the state side. Today is day 8 of 120 in the Colorado General Assembly. So far, there have been 104 bills, resolutions, and memorials introduced. The legislature is currently in what's called the SMART Act hearings, and they'll continue through that probably through the end of next week. We don't expect any bills to actually start getting their first committee hearings until the first week of February. I'm about halfway through those 104 bills in terms of actually reading them and seeing if they are PPCG issues or could be. As Jody mentioned, there's so far there's just one so far, but otherwise it's fairly tame. The state is still facing, but depending on how you look at it, anywhere from 800 million to $1 billion budget shortfall for next fiscal year. And they've got to figure out a way to address about a $300 million shortfall for the current fiscal year that we're in right now. So that's really what's going to be driving the conversation in the Gold Dome. And then just kind of looking at some broader themes. I believe it's 27 or 28 lawmakers have been appointed through what's called the vacancy process, which means that they were not elected to their positions. They were appointed by party committees. So it just kind of provides a unique dynamic at the State House, just because you are seeing a lot of people who are 27 of them are running for election for the first time as incumbents. As a 2026, that is a major election year for the state of Colorado. We're seeing several members of both the Senate and House running for different offices, whether that's House members running for Senate, whether that's Senate members running for statewide executive offices. You've also got some House members running for statewide executive offices. You've got House and Senate members running for congressional offices. And so we're going to likely see a lot of what's called messaging bills, bills that they're going to introduce for the sake of being able to say like, hey, this is what I'm fighting for, even if it has absolutely no chance of passing. And so keep that in mind, just because if it costs the state any money to implement, it's not likely to get through the appropriations process anyway. Happy to answer any questions. Like I said, we're still very early in the state Senate or the state legislative session. The first PPCG legislative committee meeting on the spring state session will take place February 2nd. We have promised to keep the Groundhog Day references to a minimum during that legislative committee meeting. But that's pretty much what we have. We should have a much more in-depth, much more wholesome update for you in February. Happy to answer any questions.
Penny, did you have a question or you just get ready for your report?
I'm just getting ready. No question.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'll see you back later to talk Pinnacle.
Thank you, Jared. Penny, we're ready for your Colorado Commission on
Oh.
Aging report.
I was at the CCA, AAA, and CCOA meeting on last Thursday. And I have to say that it probably was not the most uplifting meeting that I've ever attended. There seemed to be a through line of we are beyond the point of thinking that we can do the same things in the same way as we have in the past. And I kept thinking this present situation almost makes COVID look like a sunny day in terms of the positive energy that was created in how do we get through this. But I also think that another through line was that we need to be innovative. We need to be creative as boards, commissions, communities, and be particularly aware of new potential partnerships. Funding was absolutely a concern across the board. And the way it seems, to additional funding is through creative ideas of problem solving, through new energized creative partnerships. So I do see that that is probably a positive thing, that not only those of us in the Pikes Peak region, but certainly the state have an opportunity. There were a couple of things that I think particularly were relevant to the commission. One of the things that I would like, or one of the ideas that I would like to bring forward, Senator Mark Snyder from Colorado Springs is very, very active and consistently attending the CCOA meetings. He always contributes, asks questions. I was wondering, since he is local, he is a link and concerned about the issues that our commission is concerned about, could we identify an opportunity to maybe invite him to a meeting or something like that to get some of his thoughts? Because not all legislators, I've learned, are consistently present or thoughtfully thoughtful contributors to programs, to meetings. And I have found that he is consistent in attendance, asks questions, and comes up with good ideas. The second was when Christine Burrows with the CCOA provided overview of the multi-sector plan on aging. And I think it was actually at an age-friendly committee meeting that she said this, reinforced this is a 10-year plan, and identified that it can't be run only at the state level, that individual communities needed to take ownership and sort of be the boots on the ground to look at the areas of change. So I ask, would one of those community organizations be maybe a commission on aging? Would that be an appropriate group that could sort of oversee and keep track of what's going on? She thought that would be an interesting idea and definitely a doable one. So Christine Burrows would be another person that I think at some point, as the momentum builds for the MPA, the multi-sector plan on aging, that it would be helpful to have her come back and give us an update. And if the commission would be interested in, being sort of the voice, the champion locally, what would that consist of? I certainly don't want to suggest that I just volunteer everybody, but I do think the fact that this is a long-range plan, we probably should look at knowing about it and having rather frequent updates on where it stands. And that brings me to the last thing. The Commission on Aging really structures its focus on the 5 areas that are identified in the multi-sector plan on aging. And a huge opportunity, and I think that we are probably, as a community, represented almost better than any other area in the state, that we continue to look at opportunities to participate in these state Commission on Aging work groups. And they're directly related to the work that we're concerned about locally. The first one is age-friendly. We have an age-friendly group in Colorado Springs. There is energy, and so there are opportunities for shared information about what we're doing and what the state's doing. The second one, Penny Everett from Park County, participates. It's the mental health work group. And so she is a solid representative and voice for our region on that group. The third work group is the workforce work group. And this particular group is focusing right now on how can we identify opportunities to engage people 50 plus in workforce opportunities, particularly those opportunities that might be able to support older adults within communities. So the idea of older adults helping older adults seems to be something that resonates at the state level and might be worth pursuing. I attend when I can the workforce groups, but if there is anyone that is interested, I will make sure that all of the meeting information, Melissa, gets to you so you can send it out. The other work group is long-term supports and services. And Carolyn, I think that you are actively engaged in that group. It's a new group this year. And it's going to be looking at through the lens of long-term care and community services. And then the fifth work group that I don't think we have anyone participating is economic security, just looking at the bigger picture of workforce, certainly, but income and some of the things that we're doing with housing with the leadership of Steve and Phil. Those very well might fit into that work group. But the good news is our Pikes Peak region is active in the state. The even better news is that we can probably have even a stronger voice.
Penny, this is Jody. I believe Senator Snyder is on the economic committee as well. So that's what he shared
Good.
with us back in
Good.
December when we had legislative breakfast here. So yeah, it does kind of come, even though he's not on the Pikes Peak Commission on Aging, to your point, definitely well represented across all those committees. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Jody, Pikes Peak Area Council of Government Board of Directors.
Yes, thank you. Big part of this last meeting was some of the just the annual meeting. January is all the business, just like at the beginning of this meeting, getting all the board members from across the region appointed to a variety of state level boards and commissions, and making sure that the Pikes Peak region is well represented across the area. Big couple of big transportation presentations were had as well. I'd like to take just a moment to share a little bit more about Thursday and Friday's events. Typically, we do have the C4A, the Colorado Association of Area Agencies on Aging. There's 16 of us, AAAs across the state. We meet in person quarterly as well as twice a month on Zoom, just to make sure that we're connected, making sure that we're serving our constituents, our clients, our seniors, and family caregivers as best possible. And it's a great opportunity for idea sharing. But those quarterly meetings, and in particular the one in January, is when we do have a joint meeting with the Colorado Commission on Aging, as well as the Center for Aging. And on Thursday morning, we had the Aging Caucus that Penny referred to, had a variety of folks there, members of all the different committees, as well as several members of the public who were there to listen in and lend their concerns around aging and supporting our communities in that way. I will say that Senator Mark Schneider was there at the Thursday morning meeting, and really great presentations from Christine Burrows around the multi-sector plan on aging, as well as Rich Morrow, like I mentioned. He's actually a DRCOG staff member, but he's their legislative analyst, talking about overall budget and discussing workforce issues and things like that. So it was just a really great opportunity to have that time in the room all together, talking about the aging issues. And yes, Penny, those are some of the tough conversations we have to have. So they're not It's not, it's very difficult to go in and rah. You know, we know we're doing great work. We know we're doing great work across our communities despite the challenges. And so it is a big boost to us when we have these meetings because we can lean on each other, we can hear from each other, we can learn from each other. So it's really great. I won't bore you with the rest of the day. More meetings around that area. But then on Friday morning, we have legislative breakfast, and our representative Amy Pascal joined us there. That one, there were quite a few more legislative members there. But specifically, Amy Pascal was there from our area. She represents me in the Two Springs and took the House chair when Mark Snyder moved to the Senate. And so it was a great opportunity. Jared and I were both there in attendance and got to visit with her for a moment. And I think most importantly is not just knowing that they're showing up, but that we see them showing up because both Senator Schneider and Representative Pascal were also here at the PPACG legislative meeting in early December. So it makes for quick recognition and knowing what our priorities are helps to have those conversations that much easier with our representatives at the state level. So I just wanted to share that. Thursday and Friday were full days of a lot going on around legislative issues, but also contractual and state and Older Americans Act, Older Coloradans Act work that we have to keep up with. But just wanted to share that great opportunity to recognize that our representatives are showing up for aging issues, and we were really pleased to see them there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Next is the chair report. And I don't really have anything to report at this time. Except for I attended the Senior Resource Council connection this morning, and I hadn't attended for quite some time. I don't know how many people were there. 40 people. Like the state demographer was there, gave some really great statistics on the trends of where we're headed. And for those of you who aren't a member or would just like to see what that group's about, I would encourage you to check them out. They have lunch meetings that are very educational. They have this monthly, is this a monthly meeting, quarterly? Monthly connection, and just go online and you can check out all of their events and activities for members and non-members. But it was very well attended and very informational. All right. Next item is number 9, working sessions. Working groups, the first one being creative age-friendly housing and transportation. Do you have a report?
I had a schedule. This is Phil Stafford. I had a scheduling conflict with David Lord's last meeting. I would defer. Bob, were you at that meeting? Or Melissa? I would need to defer to you because I had to miss that meeting.
So with that, kind of age-friendly group, kind of bringing together 3 different entities in town that are talking about housing issues, really primarily around kind of El Paso County housing needs, not so much Teller County at this point, but and really the biggest focus for that group right now is convening information to the housing report that has been completed for the county. And so that information is in there about the need for affordable housing for older adults, as well as continuing to have opportunities to build out age-friendly housing. So there were many items that have been kind of fleshed out over the last year. And those were items that David Lord is looking to share with it's a combination housing assessment for the region being El Paso County. And basically this is because our state legislature passed a bill due to housing affordability and struggles across the state, that every community has to have a housing assessment done. And so El Paso County has been working on that. And it combines Colorado Springs, Monument, Calhan, all of the areas. And so that was the key points of that, was to bring forward the ideas that have been generated over the last year from different groups talking and meeting. Some of those are already in the plan, which is good. But some of them just need to be footnoted. So that's what happened at that meeting.
Great.
And just to add to that, Steve, Bob, and I will be planning on getting together and for Jared's wonderful presentation about the Colorado Open Records Act. We will let you know when that takes place.
I think so. The other piece when the group met earlier this week with the idea, so when Paula talked about having a community member come and present to the Commission on Aging, we really haven't had that happen in a long time. And I got an email from the Colorado Springs Philharmonic saying that they are starting a program that's an intergenerational program with the Philharmonic to do Sunday matinees where they pair older adults with UCCS students, but because it's on a Sunday, they don't have transportation. And so we spent a little bit of time talking amongst ourselves about some additional information that we need to have to kind of talk about that a little bit more. The person from the Philharmonic would have come today and actually talked about it during open comment, but she's out of town. So, so that'll happen a little bit. Possibly you might hear from her in February, but she also, I have sent her an email asking her if she has any idea how many people actually were in need of rides to the event. They were doing them on the first Sunday of every month. Turns out that Bob is a member of the Philharmonic and he actually knew more about the program than I got in the email. So that was kind of fun. So again, trying to get some more information about what their needs are. It's an intergenerational, really unique program. So like social engagement possibly might be interested. Transportation, what is the actual need? Is it, she got a phone call from one person who couldn't get a ride, or is this a much bigger problem? And we were, Jody and I were talking about sending her the Wrinkle Friends, which is this newer nonprofit that just opened here in our region, to see if they might be a possible resource for the for whoever it is that might need a ride. But again, trying to find out how many people this might be impacting. So stay tuned for a conversation possibly next month. Bob, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. So, okay, great. So, yeah, so we might, it's kind of fun to get that, community engagement where somebody's calling and questioning about something, and have the opportunity for them to come, and also for us to know that the Philharmonic is doing this. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Next item is strengthening caregiver support and services, and that would be Caroline.
I don't have a long report this month. We did have a quorum for our January meeting, but Cheryl Schurer has accepted our invitation to come and present to our February meeting and give us an update on where we are with dementia-friendly Colorado Springs, and what that means for care partners and how we might engage. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout for our February meeting.
I wonder, Carolyn, is she coming to just your caregiver group, or does she want to come to the Commission on Age, so the
Yeah,
caregiver
you
group?
can take her.
Okay, okay. Sounds
can
good.
I
maybe do a
can, I
larger
can,
one.
I can get her to this. Would you like her to come to? Okay, okay.
And she's waiting for an update,
Yeah.
officially on where we are with.
Right,
caregiver
and
group.
I'm on that email thread with Cheryl to reach out to, it's actually Dementia Friendly America, they don't really have dementia-friendly communities because they don't have the capacity to track the communities. So but it's just a movement, dementia-friendly movement. And I know at one point our airport has been designated dementia-friendly because the mayor's office, yeah, the mayor's office 2 years ago, maybe year and a half ago, has lanyards that you can wear in the airport that will identify you as someone with dementia needing extra assistance to the gate or at whatever. Uh, so yeah, Cheryl and I have some research to do, investigating to do about that. But more and more people with dementia are wearing lanyards. Joanna had one on the other day when she spoke at one of my support groups, and I have another client who has frontal temporal dementia who's 54 years old, and you wouldn't think he had dementia, and people are like joking, like that's not a real thing. Why does he have that on? And he really does have dementia. So I think you're seeing more and more people identify themselves as someone living with brain change. And if I even saw a gentleman with a badge that said, "Ask me about my friend Louis," meaning that he had Lewy body, Lewy body dementia. So anyway,
I think that brings up the great connection though, like how do we get that communication out there to potential care partners to say
absolutely.
landings are available for. Perfect example. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Next is promoting social engagement and inclusion, and that would be Kathy.
Or at least first meeting of the year is tomorrow. Sure, we have some issues to discuss. And go from there. Okay. So you can. Okay. Okay, so our first meeting is tomorrow. And me and Penny both said we had something to talk about, so we're waiting until tomorrow to talk about it.
Are we in violation of the? Okay, great. Checking. We're all gonna get like arrested at the door. All right. Next is discussion items, and that would be item number A, sale of Pinnacle Assurance. Here he comes. Jared to the podium.
And I'll at least give an overview of this. Keep in mind, there's going to be a lot more questions than our answers. But I'll do my best to kind of give at least what we know and what we know so far. So Pinnacle Assurance is the state's last insurer. It is essentially the backstop for workman's comp claims and workman's compensation insurance. And so there have been talks for several years now about selling that, because right now it's a quasi governmental agency. The state essentially still it has its own board of directors, but the state has still has some control over it. As part of the governor's budget proposal in October, his recommendation was to sell Pinnacle Assurance. The governor's proposal estimated that it would generate roughly $400 million of one-time cash funds to help balance next year's budget, which I mentioned earlier. Right now, we're looking at about a $800 to $1 billion shortfall. For some context, Colorado's been in this $800 to $1 billion, upwards to $1.2 billion shortfall for probably since COVID. The COVID funds, since those have dried up and those have no longer come, that's really when the state's budget problems really start on this kind of scale. And so the governor's proposal for this $400 million one-time fix, the first place that would go to would be to fund the state senior homestead tax exemption. Because right now there's no money to fund it. And then the next part, I'm trying to think, it was senior homestead tax exemption, and then after that, maybe it just went to general fund. Ever since the governor's proposal last fall, the Joint Budget Committee has been meeting, and legislators have also been weighing in. I would say that the reception from the General Assembly has been lukewarm to this proposal. It has not been, and like I said, this has been something that's come up annually for the last couple of years, really since the COVID relief dollars have started to go away. But in this, but there's been some hesitancy, partly because this is a one-time fix. This doesn't solve the underlying annual billion-dollar shortfall that the state is facing. That's one concern from the state legislature. The other concern is regarding Pinnacle's role in the state as that insurer of last resort. And so if the state no longer has that, does Pinnacle's role stay the same? And do small businesses who really rely on Pinnacle for those policies, will that stay the same? And so there's a lot of concern on what Pinnacle's role would look like moving forward. Part of the concern from the Pinnacle side and why they would like to be able to at least have some more flexibility is because of how it's structured. They can only offer policies for businesses that operate only within the state of Colorado. So if you're a multi-state business, they can't cross state boundaries. And so that is a argument for the sale, or what you might hear, the privatization of Pinnacle Insurance. And so that got us to the start of the legislative session last Wednesday. Again, not overly warm and fuzzy receptions from legislators and Joint Budget Committee on making this move. How they would fill this $400 million is also up for discussion. That'll be something the Joint Budget Committee is going to have to be looking at. But there were rumblings last week, and there was a Gazette article, I think, in yesterday's paper, regarding essentially another proposal to sell Pinnacle Insurance and use that for workforce development. This would be a ballot initiative as opposed to a state law passed by the legislature. And this would be at the November ballot, and they have proposed using that money to fund workforce development. No mention of senior homestead tax exemption, from what I can tell. Whether this is a move, we've seen this in past sessions to where you'll see a state ballot initiative being proposed. The most recent one that comes to mind is regarding property taxes, where a ballot initiative is proposed and the ballot sponsors will be willing to pull it off if the legislature passes a bill to their liking. That's what happened to state session, to state special session in this is 26, I think in 2024, 2023. So there is a possibility you could see this. Obviously, if this legislature wants to sell it, that would probably preempt the ballot initiative. But there's, like I said, a lot more questions and answers regarding the sale of Pinnacle itself and what Pinnacle would look like post-sale. Where the money goes, like I said, if it's the state and the governor's proposal, that money would go to senior homestead tax exemption first. The ballot initiative would do that for workforce development. And if you don't sell it, how do you fix a $400 million budget hole on top of the roughly $600 million you have to figure out as well? Happy to answer questions. If anyone else is hearing anything differently, also happy to kind of have that discussion. But this kind of came up earlier this week. I just kind of wanted to provide at least an update on what that looks like. There have been no firm proposals from the General Assembly one way or the other. State budget will probably get introduced in early March. No, late March, early April. And that's when we're really now. Joint Budget Committee continues to meet. I don't envy the work that they have to do this session. Last year was kind of the year where they, looked in the couch cushions and cleaned out the pockets and looked at the change drawer that's sitting next to the door. That was last year. What they're going to do this year, it's hard to say. Obviously, Pinnacle being one of those options.
So I was surprised to see that, you know, a group of citizens could decide to try to put this on as a ballot issue. And so how does, you know, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but you know, like, how did that work? You know, how does that happen that the governor, you know, and other state legislators can say, well, let's look at selling this and we'll use it for these various things. But then, you know, a group of organized citizens can come along and say, well, wait a minute, we don't want you to do anything with it until we can put it on the ballot in November. But yet they're going to want to be making decisions in March. And so, you know, there's just, you know, what do you know about that, if anything?
So the timeline is a big piece of this, and to your point, like if the legislature does nothing, it doesn't sell Pinnacle. Obviously, that keeps it open for the ballot. If the legislature does do something, what does that look like for a ballot initiative? Ballot initiatives don't need to be finalized until right around Labor Day, if I'm remembering right. So obviously, there's quite a bit of time from when the General Assembly ends to the ballot deadline to make that decision. I remember that because that was like in the property tax discussion a couple of years ago. But in terms of the overall process, in terms of the ballot initiative, and so I mean you got the what the legislature can do within the confines of state statute and the Colorado Constitution. But citizens in Colorado do have the ability to put anything they want, and essentially act as their own legislature in that instance. And so I'm trying to remember. I think it was a year we had a lot of ballot questions. Was it last year or 2 years ago? But we had like, I want to say like 15 or 14 or 15 ballot questions, statewide ballot questions. Some of them, I think it was, if I'm remembering right, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it was 7 and 7. I think 7 of them came from the legislature, seven of them came from citizen petition. But if you look at the context of those citizen ones, and you looked at, I mean, if you looked at the language for the citizen ones and the language for the legislature ones, the language is very similar in terms of how it's structured, in terms of, you know, amend Colorado Revised Statute, to say this instead of this. It looked like legislative language. And so in terms of the state petition process, that's totally within their ability. So if you have a group of people who are very passionate about a particular issue, that's always a course of action. If you feel the legislature is not doing what you would like, you can essentially petition and get the signatures and do all that work, and got to go through the Secretary of State's office and the rules and the name setting and all that. It's a process.
But yet, since, you know, it's already been being discussed to do this and to use the funds to go towards these other opportunities, I'm wondering, since now, you know, if a group of citizens have been able to bring it up, if really our state legislature is not going to be able to move forward until that actually does happen, or there is a possibility they could decide to sell it anyway. You know, but unfortunately, we have a pretty good, you know, white paper out there, you know, validating the importance of the Homestead Exemption Act and the benefit. But yet, when you start hearing workforce development, you know, watch out. That's, you know, a huge, I mean, we've always got competing, you know, issues, you know, with funding, but I just was super concerned, and to know that a group of organized people are organized enough to put it on a ballot issue. I'm just thinking we have a lot more work to do here in the next couple of months. And that, of course, means the folks at CCA, you know, and Rich Morrow, and, you know, other people who are caring about this too, not just the Area Agency on Aging and the Pikes Peak Commission on Aging, but other entities too. So, and I just was hoping that there would be an answer that no, it's probably not going to happen, and the state legislature can turn around and decide to sell Pinnacle and it'll be over. But I'm guessing that that's not at all necessarily the case.
So I usually would try to avoid looking into a crystal ball or anything like that, just because I think weathermen would probably have more accuracy at doing something like that. You know, it's a back and forth. And so, like I said, a couple years ago, there was a property tax discussion. And part of the concern at the time was that, they knew that it was coming. They adjourned a regular session without really addressing it. Uh, that ballot initiative really got some steam. And it really, and the person running it is known to like, if he says he's going to do something, it's probably going to happen, or at least a really good chance of it happening. And so that's really what happened, was that the legislature was like, do we let it go to and the ballot initiative sponsor in this case was willing to say, state legislature, if you can make these changes, I'll pull my ballot initiative. And that's ultimately what happened. And so I think it's a little too early to tell, is this a messaging? Is this an argument? Is this someone from a the workforce development side saying like, hey, state legislature, we need the money. Here's what we're going to propose if you don't do what we ask. It's too early to tell if that's really the motive or if there's something else going on. We're also hearing a lot of other ballot initiatives outside of Pinnacle. One of them, and they've already got a name, Stillwater Roads, and that'd be regarding the transportation funding. And
And
really
is that what are they wanting Pinnacle?
departments and programs in the state that are very general fund reliant. Education is one of them. Education is one of them. So I mean, we're seeing a lot of different ballot initiatives floating around out there. Again, just because they're talking about it, does it actually get through all the steps needed to get onto the ballot? That's an open question. If it does, do they have the resources to mount a campaign to do that? That's another question. Like I said, for more questions than answers when it comes to Pinnacle, just because the state legislature has to make that decision. Like I said, it's a bigger, broader budget discussion. You sell it, that's $400 million for the next year's budget. What about next year's budget? The budget after that. And so you got to look at it from that perspective. But no, like, and so I think I want to say it was a couple years ago, there's a state ballot initiative regarding funding for law enforcement officers and their families. Specifically, I believe it was law enforcement officers killed in action. And it created a state fund to support those families. Then it identified where that money would come from. And so the state went and as they were doing the budget, they had to make sure they appropriated that money to support that fund that the voters had decided on. So it's a messy process. Lawmaking is a messy process.
And I wonder, we talked about Mark Snyder and we talked about Amy Pascal. And so I wonder if the Commission on Aging, wants to, kind of forward the white paper that we have to them, if we can do that through the Commission on Aging, or if we should send that up through the PPACG board to send it on to those two legislators, just to, take a moment to be able to, because I'm sure they don't really know that we've, as the Commission on Aging has crafted that, paper and done that work. And so just kind of thinking about, pushing that up the chain just a little bit, this might all go away tomorrow. The workforce development thing might just disappear, but it also might not. So what about the Commission on Aging being able to do something like that?
So I'll jump in here. The board of directors did approve that that white paper to be able to be used with our legislators. So there's no need to go back to them. They have approved that for use with legislators. So we can do that.
And so literally just kind of empower our housing and transit folks to potentially send a email to Senator Snyder and Representative Pascal and, send it off.
If I may, just because you're talking about funding this through the Pinnacle sale. If I was to bet based on the reaction from our board last Wednesday, I don't know if they would be in support of selling Pinnacle. Just to be completely honest. And because of that, are we sending mixed messages? Ultimately, we report to the board of directors. They set the policy in terms of legislative. By sending that while this is pending, knowing that these two things are very much related for the next budget session, we really run a risk of getting over our skis on this area.
Yeah, Jared brings up a good point in that, because the messaging would have to be that we're concerned about budget season, it's legislative time. here's our thoughts on the homestead tax exemption, and really not tie that conversation or emails or anything like that to Pinnacle, because then we would be crossing a boundary. That
Well-
could be more dangerous than the time spent.
And I guess the paper, when it was created, didn't know about the sale of Pinnacle, so it
Sure.
doesn't mention anything about it. So
Right.
that's
But
good.
that would be important from the messaging that would accompany that flyer to our legislators, is making sure that we're not crossing those boundaries. Because to Jared's point, yes, there was a very distinct and strong conversation around the sale of Pinnacle, and what that could mean, and especially, even what the funding would look like, the fact that it's one time, it's not really a long-term solution, like I mentioned earlier, but also just how that will affect small business owners. This is a product that small business owners can access, where really it's unaffordable to go to a third party or a private party business for their workman's comp plans, and this enables them to keep those plans in place. And with the sale of this, ultimately going to a private agency, a private company that would run this, there's just really no control over the pricing. That would really, really be harmful. That was a big part of the discussion, board of directors, is the harm that sale of Pinnacle could be for our small business owners across the state.
So two small questions before you go. How much of the budget does the Homestead Act take up?
So about 250, 200.
Sorry, it's about 200 to 250 million per year. So even with, that is something that, because the governor has tied the sale of Pinnacle to supporting the homestead tax exemption, that's a one-time fix.
Yeah.
It's not a long-term fix.
And this is kind of a side issue. If the legislature does something and the ballot initiative conflict with that, does one trump the other, or is that where you end up in court?
Officially, I don't know. If I was to guess, my assumption was that the ballot initiative would trump the legislature. But if the legislature sells it before the ballot initiative, there's nothing to sell. That is a fantastic what if. I'm sure someone with 2 commas in their salary could probably be in a better position to answer that than I could.
But the citizens are speaking, right? Like, people are rallying and coming out and saying, oh, wait a minute, time out. We'd like to have this be considered. People are starting to circle the wagon. a bit.
We are hearing kind of a general consensus that there isn't really a big appetite for not funding the homestead taxes. That did happen quite a long time ago, and it was very, very unpopular. It was not well received by the citizens. And so, it's 4:32 right now, and anything could happen at 4:35. But that's a general consensus that we're hearing from legislators. There's really not an appetite to cut the homestead tax exemption, but you just never know.
And I would second that. That is, I would say, at the very bottom of the list. At the
Well,
same-
hopefully state fund for senior services is at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Had to throw that in there. Just ignore us.
But no, that is like I said, I don't envy any member of the joint budget committee this year. Because they're hearing the same thing from a lot of other organizations, agencies, groups across the state. One of the budget proposals from the governor's office was to significantly, I don't think eliminate, but significantly reduce the amount of funding they provide to students with autism. They're making some really heart-wrenching decisions. And at the end of the day, they got to balance a budget.
Any other
Happy-
questions? Anyone online? Right, thank you, Jared.
All right, thank you all.
Next is member entity announcements. Does anybody have anything to share? The group?
Madam Chair, I'd like to share that we here at Area Agency on Aging will be hosting the Marketing and Emissions networking meeting tomorrow afternoon. That's January 22nd, 3:30 to 5 here in the main conference room where we're seated today. So if you would like a flyer on that or forwarded an email, I'm happy to do that. That'll be tomorrow afternoon, 3:30 to 5 here.
Any other announcements, Bob?
Other senior coalition is, I don't have the date, apologize. We are hosting a meeting at Florissant, Colorado on emergency preparedness. And have the county emergency preparedness person in charge of that, plus the fire district, because they've had to be evacuated, I think, 5 times in the last 3 years. And especially for seniors, or even if you get a huge snowstorm like we did last year, where people couldn't get oxygen for a week because we couldn't plow them out. So it created things. What should you have in your home? And etc. So it's being held at the Forest Center, Community Center. Then something that we will probably approve tomorrow is we are going to, even if it's on our own dime, we're going to try to find some funding, start a bus route between Colorado County and Colorado Springs. And that started some bus routes from Deckers to Woodland Park and Cripple Creek. So popular, we've had 2 days now and now we started from Lake George, Park County, and that's got so popular, having to start 2 days there. So we've kind of maxed out our MMOF funding for that and asking for more as usual, but we're just going to do it, even if we'll just take it out of our budget and try it for a year and see what happens. I know that there's some other people who are talking about Callahan and Colorado Springs and some other places, but we haven't had anything. We have one taxi that you can call and try to get down from. You can get from here to there on Uber and Lyft. It's just hard to get them to come up empty and do that. So anyway, that's 2 things.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
A reminder for folks that we have the older driver training workshop happening at the Pikes Peak Library District, Library 21C. So for those coming from Teller County, it's could be easy if you jump on the highway and don't run into any traffic. But it's next Friday at 11 o'clock. And Terry Cassidy with Health Promotion Partners is teaching that 1 hour kind of workshop on resources for helping decide if you keep driving or how to support people to make decisions around driving. So this is a reschedule from a December meeting that got canceled because of the weather. So hopefully we'll have good weather next Friday. So please pass that on to anybody who might want to come.
Do you have a flyer that you could?
I
forward?
do. I'll
Yeah,
go grab it.
yeah, that would be great.
And I'll also send it out. I think I did it last month too, but
That would be
again,
great. Thank
and
you.
if anyone has any other flyers of events or things that you want me to email out, please forward them to me and I'll kind of put them all in one email and send them at one time. So if you have anything,
Do you want to include the?
you bet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you need that sent to you? Have it
Please,
already?
no, resend it if you have it handy.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll put that in there too.
Wonder, Madam Chair, if we should think about that as an agenda item too. Senior Olympics. And that leads me to one more Jared question, because the February meeting will have Melissa and Kim and I on, so the people, does that mean?
But Melissa is a staff member, so she doesn't count in that counts.
Oh, cool.
How
Okay,
exciting.
thank you, Jared.
She counts, but she's not. Yeah,
Thank you for that clarification.
she
That's all.
counts tremendously. All right, any other announcements? No. All right, next meeting is February 18th, 3 to 5. Executive committee meets always on the first Wednesday of every month at 9. It is always Zoom, and everyone is always welcome to attend. And then the other meetings are listed on the agenda. And we're presenting in March, correct?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did move you to March.
Okay. Right. We're presenting to the PPACG Board of Directors in March on our work on the commission. All right.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is this meeting always the third Wednesday of the month?
it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. We have items for next meeting listed. Yeah. All right. I think we're good to adjourn. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.